Alright guys, many of you have asked me before what are my presets and how do I get a show sounding the way I have it sounded here, and this video is going to go over my mix settings for 2025. I just need to get a couple disclaimers out of the way. No, I will not be putting a file for you to download and apply to your mixer, because what works for me in here will not necessarily work for you wherever you mix. And secondly, and sort of more importantly, I don't want to release a preset where you guys download it and you don't do anything else to the mix and it doesn't sound as spectacular as you want it to, and then you blame me for it. So I don't want that. I don't want that headache. So right here, I'm going to show you guys exactly what I do. I'm going to go over everything and just show you guys what I do here to get a band sounding the way I have it. So I have a secondary camera going on right now so you can see the screen a little more clearly. And I apologize for that beeping. It's the security camera system. The cameras are out of sync with the system, so ignore that beeping. All right, so first things first, let's go over drums. This is my kick drum channel. I use mainly an Audix D6. Pre-gain, I like to have everything around -12, hovering, peaking. I use my default noise gate is a source extractor PSC 545, and this is my kick drum EQ. There's usually a lot of boxiness and a lot of like low mids I don't like around like 125. The Audix D6 does not need a lot of high-end boost, but I will boost here if needed. Compressor, I have all my drums default to the same exact compressor settings. So the ratio is 4:1, attack is 50, hold is around 50, and release is 20. So, and my detector is peak setting, not RMS setting. And this is my settings for all of my drums across the board. So I'm going to explain it once for the kick and then just apply that same logic to the rest of the drums. I have everything with that first notch right there, which is around -5. So I aim for a -5 gain reduction, and that is it as far as EQ and compression for my kick drum. Let's go to the snare drum. Boosting around 200 to get a little more fatness. I have it cranked a little bit around 2K to get a little extra attack, and a little bit of 6 to 7, 8K to just have a little bit more crispiness to it. So the snare cuts right through, and I scoop the mids pretty severely here. I want the mids to be where the guitar and everything else lie. I don't want the drums to have that area. Same thing with the toms. This is my small rack tom. Again, no low-end boosting needed for this venue. I have a boost in the high end. So I have 3 toms, relatively the same. And these are my overheads. My snare drum, by the way, is the microphone of choice is a Shure Beta 57A, and the toms are the Sennheiser MD421 compacts. The overheads, which are right where those work lights are, they get basically the whole stage. They are Behringer C2 small diaphragm condenser microphones, and they are set in a stereo pair right here on this one fader. Very convenient feature for the wing. So I have my Pultec EQ emulation. My high frequency is 10. Attenuation is roughly around 1 o'clock. High boost is around 11 o'clock. And what that looks like as far as like parametric EQ goes, this is basically what it looks like. Pretty smooth EQ, and it gets the cymbals to come in nicely but not be so aggressive. I also have an 1176 mod on this, and it only activates when the snare drum hits. I want the snare drum microphone to be the point of contact for, you know, the oomph from the snare drum. I don't want the snare drum coming in through the overheads. So this is the fast attack, fast release, and it only goes down by like 1 or 2 dB when the snare drum hits. Those are my drums, and they are bussed. The close mics are going to a drum punch bus, and the drum punch bus is the Wave Designer, basically just a transient exciter. Attack is +3, sustain is around +6, and the output is relatively the same. And let me show you, this is on bus 9, so these are where my drums are right here on the Wave Designer. As you can see, the kick and the snare, they get a lot of oomph. Toms really don't need that much, but depending on the drummer, I may boost it, I may lower it, depending on how the drummer hits the toms. From those drums, they also go to a reverb track. And I'll show you that reverb in a second. But I have one designated reverb, which basically that's just like a reverb for just about anything I want on it. So the snare and the toms go to that. So those are my drums and how I get the drums situated here. Let's go to bass. So with the pre-gain, I like to have the bass guitar around between -24 and -12, and I have a ducker right here with the fastest attack, fastest release. So, and it lowers it by 3 dB, so that when the kick drum hits, the kick drum comes right through, and the bass ducks underneath it. So that's why I can get the kick and the bass sounding pretty solid if the drummer and the bass player are locked in together. I have a pretty aggressive low-end boost on the bass guitar, just because I want that really nice sub low end. I have the mids around 450, scooped a little bit. Don't really need those. And I have the high end scooped a little bit here around 3K, but I will adjust it if needed. Like let's say if a more grungy style bass player comes in here and they need a little more boost and I'm not hearing it, I'll just boost this. From there, it goes to a distressor emulation. I have the input set so that it cuts about 5 to 6 dB. Attack is 1, release is 5, and the output I just adjust by turning on and off until it's the same volume with it on versus off. And that's at 4 to 1. So that's bass guitar. Nothing else is on the bass guitar. That is it. So guitars. I know this is where a lot of people are going to have some opinions on, but I have my two guitars by default high passed at around 130 because I want all that low end to be for the bass guitar. I don't want any low end from the guitars to come in because this is live. You have to ignore just about everything you know about studio mixing practices and get what sounds good for the room. And here in a room, which is what I mix for priority, what you guys hear on my streams and my mixes on my computer, that's secondary. My priority is to make the mix sound good in here first, and then I adjust where needed to get it sounding as good on the stream. So with the guitars, I have in passed at around 120, 130. High end is around 10K upward. Low pass filter, and I do not have any compression at all on this. I know it says 6 dB. I should just eliminate this right now, but there is no compression on the guitars. If they have an acoustic or they're mostly clean channel, I'll put a little bit of compression on that, but that's it. The guitars are bussed to a guitar chain right here. So all my guitars on the stage go to this bus. And here's where some EQ comes into play. I make sure I lower the I lower 300 and around 150, just so the low ends of the guitar don't really cut through too much. And I take a little bit out around 2.5K just to ease the upper mids there, so the vocal can come through. Because again, the number one priority I have with live sound is getting the vocals sounding good. From there, I have a multi-band compressor, and that is just to attack the low end. So in case if there's a player up there just doing a lot of low end chugs, that just maintains the low end. So I have that. Vocals. Let's go to vocals. Again, this is where people are going to be a little, they're going to have some opinions. Noise gates across the board are the source extractor. I adjust for each vocalist. So here are my EQs for the vocal channels. I have to contain feedback on that stage because you guys have seen my videos before. You see how small those wedges are. I have to crank them in order for the musicians on there to be able to hear themselves clearly. And with the vocal mics like 3 feet away from the cymbals, if the singer is not projecting as loudly as I need him or her to do, and the drummer is beating the shit out of their cymbals, it's just a disaster if I want to get vocals coming in clearly through the house and the monitor. So this is just for feedback control. So that's my center vocal, and everywhere else on the stage is a little different because the stage acoustics up there are different from where those mics are versus the center. From there, every vocal mic goes through the LA2A modeler, and I have enough peak reduction between when they really get like their loudest, between 2 and 3 dB reduction, and I make up gain with that until it sounds clear to me. From there, they go to a vocal bus where they are compressed, sidechain compressed, 4:1, with just a little bit of like 2 dB reduction just to maintain the peaks. So let's talk about reverb effects. So this is my one and only reverb for everything. It is it's the vintage reverb. I have the decay as 1.5 seconds. Pre-delay is 20 milliseconds. The low cut is about 200 hertz. The high-end cut is about 10K. And it really is just a good sounding reverb. Before that though, the vocals, everything there is compressed, and it's a trick commonly used by both studio and live engineers to compress the source signal before it hits the reverb, just so the initial attack of the signal comes through first and then the reverb hits. And this is specifically just for vocals. This is a tape delay. So you see this flashing green button here. This is the tempo button. So if the band is playing, I just tap this button to the tempo of the song, and that sets that. I set that for every song that every band plays. But from there, I have another compressor here for this, and I compress the vocals about 5 dB, and I release it around 76. I hold it for 100 milliseconds and I release it at 76, and that gives it enough time for, again, the vocal to come through before the stereo delay takes effect. And then I finally have this EQ'd a little bit. By a little bit, I mean a lot. I roll off everything up until around 600, and then I roll off everything around like 2K upward. I want just the mids to come through. So those are all my tracks, those are my buses. Let's go now to the main stereo bus. And this EQ is solely for the PA. This is not what you hear on my vlogs. This is not what you hear on my streams. This EQ is solely for the PA. You probably noticed right here also, I have 4 stage wedges, and I have 2 slots for in-ears. Those are pretty self-explanatory. I just EQ'd it till it sounds good, and I send whatever I want to that according to what the band needs. But anyway, here is the master bus EQ, and this is only for the PA. This is not what you guys hear. I take out a little bit here and there with these frequencies until it sounds right. And the way that I got this sounding the way it did was I played a couple of songs I know every in and out of, that I know how it sounds good, and I play them in this room, and I hear it at both low and high volumes, and I adjust this until it sounds great. I then have a limiter on to limit it at -3 dB with the fastest attack and the fastest release. So then let's go to my matrices outputs. So this is my main, this is my front of house. This goes to the bar, and it's just a mirror of everything going over the main. So this matrix 2, this is what you guys hear. So if you go to my main bus here, you see this little blue line right here? This is a cutoff point. So you guys will hear this compressor, which is a SSL bus compressor. This will be a multiband compressor just to get a little bit of the just the peaks in those frequency ranges, and then from here it gets sent to the matrix input. So this direct input right here, I love the wing for this reason. You can plug any other microphone in here and have this slot added just to the matrix and not the main mix, which is awesome. So here I have a room mic, which is an AKG C214. I'm sending it at like -15 dB just to give a little bit of room noise in the overall board mix. This compressor here just limits the peaks. This EQ is what you guys hear. I take out a little bit around 290, around 300. I take a little bit around like 130. I boost a little bit around 3K, and then I have a little shelf from 6K upward, boosted a little bit, just to give it a little more clarity on the stream. And then this is my secret weapon as far as what you guys hear on my streams. So this is a frequency exciter. It's a stereo exciter. So I have the bass around 9 o'clock, the gain at around 10, 11 o'clock. The mid I keep at minimum, but the gain I have it at 1, around the 1 o'clock position. And on the highs I have between 8 and 9 o'clock, and the gain is up at 11 o'clock. The stereo overall exciter, the level is around 1 o'clock, and that's it. And then from here, then it goes to my SSL2 Plus interface, which is just a converter. It just sends it to my computer, which is what you guys hear on the stream. And that, guys, is it. That is my complete mix rundown. Feel free to copy any of these settings, but I should warn you beforehand, if you copy these exact settings the way they are, guarantee they won't work for wherever it is that you are mixing. Adjust to what your ears hear, and happy mixing. Catch you guys in the next video. Peace.